All right, gang, we have Steve Clark here and his beautiful 68 AMX. And Steve, you're going to tell us a little bit about this particular car and the history and how you came about.
All right, I'll try and condense it down. It's got a story. This is a 1968 AMC AMX. Her name is Maxine, Max for short, which is a play on the letters AMX, which was the name given to her by my grandfather, who was the original owner. This is an original Venice, Florida car. Came from Ralph Wolfer AMC in Venice down by the old circus. And he got it in 68. That was the only one that he got at the time. He kept it, did not sell it until 72, which is when my grandfather bought it. Just speed forward. My grandfather had it till about 1988. He sold it to somebody in Miami. It went to Fort Myers. And then Larry and Andrea Wolfer, the son of Ralph Wolfer, bought it back in 92, 94, somewhere in there. And then I, by accident, found out they had it. And it took me about 7 years to pry it out of Larry and Andy's hands. But I finally got it, and I restored it. It took me a lot of money and about 15 years, and I did everything on this car myself. So she is I guess you could call it numbers matching, although they didn't use numbers, it was date codes. It's got the original M12 Borg Warner 3-speed automatic. It has the original 390 engine in it. It's got the original carburetor. It's got the original radiator. The motor was rebuilt. I've had it punched 30 over. I rebuilt the engine. I didn't do the machine work. It's got the R4B Edelbrock intake, which was a dealer option in 68. It's got the Donahue spoiler, which is a 69 dealer option. That put that on there. I just think it makes the car look a lot better.
Yes, sir.
And then the heads are actually 401 dogleg heads. That is what they call them. They come off of a 401 and 71 year and forward, and that just causes it to breathe a little better. So it's got better heads on it. I still have the original cast iron intake, the original. Yep, there it is. That's that is the dealer plate. I actually got that from Larry Wolfer when I showed him I had the car redone. I got two of those, one there and there's one on the actual front bumper.
Fantastic.
And it's funny because that picture on the wall with Wolfer Motors, there's a car in there and you can see the car's got one on the front of it.
Can we look at some of the history? You showed me some pictures earlier.
Yeah, so this is my shop, by the way, where we're at. And this is a picture of Wolfer Motors, and you can actually see the dealer plate on the front of that car, that Javelin right there.
Sure enough.
And this building still exists. It's the old pit stop down there by the Circus Bridge.
That's where they were.
Yep,
Okay.
that's where they were at. And like I said, my grandfather bought it in 72. This is the way the dealership painted it here as a dealership demo. That's my grandmother. And my grandfather changed the paint a little bit. But anyways, I got it back from Larry and Andy in in 2002. I talked to him in 97. 2002, I finally got it from him. And then I started rebuilding it. My grandfather was still alive at the time. He saw it. He thought I was an idiot for buying it back. But unfortunately, he passed away before I saw it finished. And then my grandmother saw it finished, though. So that was pretty
Fantastic.
cool.
Yes,
But,
sir. Can we take a look, go through the tour of the car?
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the interior, because you had mentioned earlier there were 2,300 of these made.
So, right, in 1968, with the different drivetrains and engines and things like that, the different options on the drivetrain, there was actually about 6,000. Of the 390 automatic transmission, there was 2,300 made. And in that 2,300, there was only 329 made that had factory air. This car has factory air, so this is one of 329. And in 68, there were only 2,500 AMC dealerships across the country, one of them being Wolfer Motors. So 2,500 dealers, 2,300 of these. Not every dealer got one.
Yeah.
In fact, Ralph Wolfer only got one, and that was this one.
Yeah. And naturally, being here in Florida, it had air.
Yep, and it had air.
Yep.
And it actually has a desert setting on the AC, you know.
Cool.
But that's the interior. It's kind of dark, but it's all black. The console, it's got the shift command, 3-speed automatic, they call it, in the middle. Factory air vents in the middle. No, of course, it's got the 3-piece seat belt harness. There's a piece that in the back, the shoulder piece is separate from the lap belts. No back seat. The Javelin had a back seat and was 12 inches longer. These were 92-inch wheel base, had no back seat. This was the only all-steel 2-seat roadster made in the United States in 1968.
Wow. Yep.
The other one was the Corvette, and it was fiberglass. When this car came out in '68, it was actually known as the Corvette Killer because Corvettes, the baseline Corvette, didn't have the power that this had.
Right.
Of course, Corvette, when they started getting this, Craig Breedlove and Mark Donahue and those guys, they set like 108 land speed records with this car in '68. Sure. And then Corvette GM was like, oh, we're not going to have any of that. So they started building, better Corvettes.
Wow.
Yeah, like I said, the stainless is not original, but the parts, I do have the original parts, but I changed it over to stainless. Offenhauser valve covers. I do have the original valve covers with the date code numbers on it. This car was built the date was actually April 5th, 1968 at the Kenosha plant, Wisconsin, lakefront plant, and it was on the east assembly line is where it came from. So it's very well documented. It's very well, we could trace its roots back very, very easily. I have all that paperwork.
And you mentioned that you went through your grandfather's papers.
Yeah, so after he passed away, he kept all his papers. He kept papers for everything. So I started going through boxes, and I actually found his original guarantee warranty card from the dealer on this. I found year after year. He kept we don't keep registrations nowadays, but he kept every year's registration. I just had tons of paperwork from him, just about everything except the window sticker.
Excellent. Excellent.
So it's very well documented, and I could trace it right back to what assembly line it came off of. Even when the seats were made, the seats were made approximately a month before the car was assembled. The radiator was made December prior to April of '68 when the car was assembled. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. They got the VIN number over here on the shock tower. It's riveted on right there. It's kind of cool.
Yes, sir.
But this engine's the 390, and like I said, it's the AMX 390. That's what the engine is called.
Yes.
The AMX, American Motors Experimental. And then they were trying to compete with the Pony Car and the Trans Am Race Series and against Corvette and Mustang, and also AMC. The designer of this car is Dick Teague.
Yes, Dick Teague.
Dick Teague came up with this design, and they said, "Hey, let's stuff the AMX engine in it, and let's call the car the AMX."
Yes.
So they did that. The only thing I would say drawback on this car is the front suspension. '68 was the worst suspension on these, and the only year they had this suspension. The only year they used this air cleaner snorkel setup. The only year they used this type of fuel pump. So in '69 they changed a lot of that, and they kept improving on those systems. And then 1970 was the last year for this car. That was actually the best front suspension you could get on these cars, was the 1970.
Oh, okay.
And those cars had working ram air in the hood, and they had a redesigned grille, but the body was still the same car.
Yes. And typical, anytime first year, it's the early version.
Yeah, they were just trying to throw stuff together real quick to get in the muscle car game. And,
yes.
Yeah, and I mean, they did a great job. And Dick Teague himself said that these cars were designed and built, thrown together, and they were never meant to last longer than 20 years.
Yep.
He himself said that. And here, proof in the pudding, this car is 53 years old, and she's still here and still looks awesome.
And that it does.
But I added the side pipes. They did, in '68, '69, '70, they did have the dealer option, which was called the Sidewinders that you can put on there, kind of like what the more recent PT Cruisers had. I didn't like those. Not only that, plus they're extremely hard to find, and it's a small diameter pipe. So I just put these side pipes on there, and I think it just sets it off and makes it look like the typical you know, stereotypical muscle car. You know.
Yes,
that
it does.
Sounds good. And she runs good.
Well, I'll tell you what, that is one heck of a car, and you've got one heck of a place here, Steve.
Yeah.
I mean, this is basically an old, what is it, a boat?
So this
Storage facility?
Right. We call this the Master Chief's Barn. I've owned it about 3 years, and it is 1954. There's 2 of these buildings here.
1954.
1954. They've been through hurricanes, tornadoes, which amazes me because it looks like a strong wind would blow her down. But it's kind of neat. When they built these, it was built by the Gulf Liner Marina down in Venice. And these were, in 1954, these were built in this neighborhood, but there was no neighborhood here. It was in the wilderness. It was just to store boats in, store inventory in, way outside of town. And over the years, they got bought and sold, and they originally were just, like you see, just a barn with a dirt floor. And in fact, this is kind of interesting. When they built this right here is an old nail keg. Every one of these posts, that's a wooden barrel nail keg on every post in here. When they get done putting the nails in it, they use that as a footer for these poles. Yeah, I bought it 3 years ago. It was just full of junk and everything. I got it cleaned out. And then what you see here, I built all of this. I built the walls, I built the bar, I built everything you see I did myself. It did not exist in here.
You know, and I have to hand it to you that it's a brilliant job because of the rustic nature of the place. It's very inviting, and it makes you want to have a beer.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I have lots of friends that come over. You know, I've had a lot of, Paul Maroney. He's been over here hanging out with me, and Dave Harris that used to own United Auto. A lot of car guys that hang out here. There's a motorcycle club I'm associated with. They hang out here. I got the bikes up in the loft there, and I got a couple more bikes in the back. I got that one-off chopper, and then that's a '59 Harley Hummer over there. But it's a cool place. I wanted to build it around automotive and Petriana and that automobilia kind of thing. And
yes, sir.
And it's just a really cool place to come hang out. I usually have it open every Saturday night for anybody who wants to come by. If the doors are open, come on in.
Awesome.
And there is a Facebook page you can follow. Like, we do parties here and stuff. It's called the Master Chief's Barn.
Oh.
And you can go and check it out. We got something going on. Come on over.
And the Master Chief comes from your...
Yeah. So I've spent about 24 years in the Navy Seabees. I am a Master Chief in the Seabees and the reserves currently. Getting ready to retire. I'm getting too fat and too old to do it anymore. But yeah, that's where it comes from. I'm a Navy Master Chief.
Awesome. Well, congratulations and thank you for serving.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
I want to thank you for your time and showing the car in this wonderful facility. You have done one hell of a nice job, my friend.
Anytime I can brag about Maxine,
Right on. All right. Thank you, sir.
All right.